Welcome to the Postcard American Town panel discussion. I'm Eric Smigel, Chair of Arts Alive SDSU, and we are recording this event, which will soon be available on our YouTube channel. We'll begin today with the Kumiya land acknowledgement. For millennia, the Kumiya people have been part of this land. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the San Diego State community, we acknowledge this legacy. We promote this balance and harmony. We find inspiration from this land, the land of the Kumiya. I'm pleased to welcome you to the final production in this year's Arts Alive SDSU Discovery Series, which is an annual selection of events that address socio-political and cultural issues through the visual and performing arts. We're delighted to continue our partnership this semester with One SDSU, who is sponsoring these interdisciplinary panel discussions. And I'd like to thank Amaris Gonzalez and the team at the Center for Student Organizations and Activities for their ongoing support of arts programming across campus. Today's discussion focuses on Postcard American Town, the newest theater production in SDSU's new musical initiative. This play examines the complexities of racial divisions in the United States through a traditional small town picnic, revealing the universal impact of cultural discrimination. We're delighted to be joined on this panel by representatives from the School of Theater, Television, and Film in the Asian Pacific Islander Desi American Resource Center, or APITA. And we're especially honored to have the composer and lyricist and the book writer of Postcard American Town, as well as the associate producer of the Old Globe Theater. And although she won't be able to join us this morning, we're grateful to Professor Ann Hua from the Department of Women's Studies and the Center for Asian and Pacific Studies. And we welcome students from her class, Women of Color in the United States, who are joining us this morning. It's now my pleasure to hand the screen over to the moderator for this discussion, Professor Virginia Lohagan, Director of the APITA Center, who will introduce our panelists. Virginia.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Smigel. All right, so I am going to actually allow each of the panelists to introduce themselves and tell us, about your work and your connection to the play. And if you can think that quickly, give us a fun fact. Since we're such a small group, let's make this casual and cozy and fun. So we'll start with our wonderful creators. So tell us your name, a highlight of your work, your connection to this work, and a fun fact.
I'm Crystal Skillman, a playwright and book writer of this musical, and I was actually born in San Diego. And
oh, wow! What part of San Diego?
National City.
Okay, super. So you've got some good Filipino food down there.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Good. Lynn, what about you?
Hi, I'm Lynn Shankle. I wrote the music and lyrics for the show. Fun fact, I've worked in San Diego many times. I've worked at, the first time I worked out here was, oh my goodness, and now I'm going to show how old I am. La Jolla Playhouse, the pre-Broadway production of Cry Baby. I music directed that, and I think that was 2007. I worked at the Globe, working on Allegiance. I've worked here many times, and I love San Diego, and I'm very happy to be able to have fish tacos every day.
Super.
My jam.
Well, I definitely also want to bring up your work with Allegiance, which is an extremely important play for our community as well. So Kim, let's go to you.
Hi, I'm hoping you can hear me. I didn't do a sound check. You can hear me? Excellent. I'm Kim Heil. I am the creative consultant for Postcard American Town. I'm also currently one of the associate producers at the Old Globe. A fun fact is that I was born in the Philippines. I am Filipino, but I was raised in Jakarta, Indonesia. And I am an immigrant. I came to the US when I was 17.
Wow, great. Can you tell us what is a creative consultant?
Well, it's an interesting question because I think I served in sort of multiple capacities, and we were trying to figure out what is the best way to capture all of this. On a lot of new productions, new plays, there is often a dramaturg who is someone who works with the writers to, to work on structure, to work on form and character development, things like that. And I did participate in that regard also. But then I also kind of functioned as a sounding board for the team and for the cast. And throughout the process, there were concerns, there were questions about, whether the play was going in a certain direction. And so I think what I did was I reflected a lot of those conversations in a way that I hope was really helpful, and also that created a place of safety for those questions, because they can be scary, they can be, provocative, and so I felt like I was a facilitator for safe but productive conversations about the art. And then ultimately, I feel like also I've provided a resource. I mean, my lived experience is very different from the characters. And, I think as a woman of color, often there is an expectation, and especially as an Asian American person, there's often this idea that we are stand-ins for the entire Asian American diaspora, which is like not a true thing. I cannot do that. And even within my own experience as a Filipino American, I feel like that in and of itself is a singular experience, that it's difficult for me to speak for all Filipino Americans. However, I do think that my experience as a woman of color, there are insights, there are reflections, memories, experiences that have hopefully informed some of the story development that I've contributed. And it has been a incredible collaborative process, and I just feel really fortunate to have been a part of it.
Great, thank you. And we definitely want to talk more about your role in the play as well. But let's go to Robert.
Hi there, I'm Rob Meff. I am the head of the musical theater program at SDSU. For this show, I serve as the music director. So my job is to teach the parts and get the band together and make sure that the vision of Lynn Shankle is expressed every night that we do the show. I'm struggling to find anything fun about my life.
I doubt that's true.
I will say that I have a 4-month-old puppy, so I think
that's fun. That's tons of
fact.
fun.
Yeah. So who may appear? We don't know
gosh. Yeah, these dogs, they're all over. I apologize for mine barking right now. But I think audiences want to know the most important question. What type of dog is it? What type of puppy is it?
Cosmo is a golden doodle puppy.
Oh, goodness. That's a lot of work. So, Stephen, so tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Brodebeck. I use he, him pronouns. I am the director of Postcard American Town and also a professor in the MFA musical theater program. I guess a fun fact about me is that I'm upstaged.
Stephen, not fair.
It's all right.
Not
it's
fair.
all right. It's all right. My work is behind the scenes anyway, so it's cool. It's cool.
Rob, that was not fair.
Yeah, but Stephen has a nice smile, so.
That is my fun fact.
Sorry, Stephen.
That's all right.
I think you're going to have to tell us everything about you again, because no one was paying attention. We all just saw Puppy.
No worries. As I said, I'm the director of Postcard American Town, and it's been such a joy to work with Crystal and Lynn and Kim throughout this process over the past couple of years. I'm also a professor in the MFA musical theater program, and I used to be a performer in a past life, so I guess a fun fact about me is that I've performed on 2 very famous stages, Carnegie Hall and the Grand Ole Opry, 2 totally different types of stages, but a lot of fun. And a show that Kim and I both did, the Radio City Christmas Spectacular. I was a dancing teddy bear in the Nutcracker and took a big old step right off the Grand Ole Opry and fell right into the orchestra pit. So that was fun.
Wow, wow, that
Yeah.
definitely is fun. I love the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah,
I highly recommend. Nashville was so much fun.
it's a great city.
Wow, that's great. Still not as cute as the puppy, but that's a great story. But super, thank you so much. And now we have a little a little bit of each of the folks that will be talking today. So that's super. So I think we have a clip, right? Should we go ahead and start with the clip? So
Yeah,
let's go ahead and start with the clip, and then we'll move into discussion.
great. So I have two clips here. Two of them are taken from the show. One is from the dress rehearsal last night, and one is from the dress rehearsal on Monday. The one from last night has the band, and the second clip is just piano because it was recorded after the band had left. I want to give some context to both of these videos, just because some of you may or may not know what the show is about. But the show centers around what is called in the show a settler's picnic, which is something that's quite common in Midwestern the United States. Is there's lots of different gatherings. Actually, you know what? Why don't you guys set this up? Because Lynn, you have all this experience with settlers picnic, so we're setting on just the tag end of "Come On Down," and just tell a little bit about like what a settlers picnic is, and why these towns why they celebrated the so-called settlers of these towns.
Sure. I grew up in Kansas, and I grew up in Kansas City, like in the suburbs. I mean, we all know like basically every suburb kind of looks exactly the same. Strip malls. That was my life. But my parents and my grandparents grew up in farm country, about an hour and a half from Kansas City, and every year on Labor Day weekend, in the town where my mom grew up, there was a settlers picnic, and we would go. We would go every year, and in this. It was a celebration of the town, a celebration of the founding of the town. We can talk later about this. Some of the picnic rules in our show were not, did not exist. It was just it was a celebration. There was, I mean, I remember being a little kid sitting on the grass. There was a parade. There were floats. There were bands. We sat on the ground and ate my great aunt's fried chicken, and that was the settlers picnic. And what I didn't know, until we really started researching this, is that there are settlers picnics that happen all over the country. Like it's a big thing, especially in the Midwest and in the South.
Great, thank you so much, Lynn. So the main character singing here is the character of Emma, and she is one of the dual protagonists of the show, and she is a member of the founding families and of Westville, which is a fictional town that in which this play is set. So what's interesting about this particular settlers picnic, as Lynn had mentioned, is that there are several sets of rules. Most importantly, that only members of the founding families are allowed to serve food at the picnic. And so the play itself is the inciting incident of this play is when the other protagonist comes into the picture. He is the son of a Chinese man and an Indian woman, and so he has that identity, and he challenges this role. He goes right to the town council and challenges this role. And the play asks, why do we have these roles? What is a settler anyway? Who was here beforehand? They're not here now. Those are actual lines from the show. And so this initial incident starts re-examining the life of what people think of this town. So anyways, this is the closing of the opening number. And performing here is Victoria Matlock Fowler and the cast of Postcard American Town.
Rob, I think you need to share sound on your end.
We're not getting
We
sound.
don't hear anything.
Yeah, Rob.
Oh, there's no audio.
Yeah.
Nope.
All right. Well, we're gonna change that
Try
again.
again.
We're gonna try that
It's
again.
the fun of
Tech.
Zoom theater. It's the fun of Zoom theater.
Yeah. All right. Talk amongst yourselves for a moment,
Um,
and we'll get that.
yeah, I'm really excited that we're showing this clip because I think, in geography and how it's manipulated and used, and getting to the heart of talking about colonialism, is important in the show. So this setup, I think, is very important for pulling at the fabric of how white people in the town have been controlling how certain decisions are made, which keeps unraveling as we pull at those threads for the audience to see until it builds to a very clear illustration of redlining.
I think I fixed it. So
Okay,
give me a
let's try
thumbs
it.
up, please. So I want to point out there also, these lyrics were carefully chosen. So in the middle of that, Emma looks up to the portraits of the founding fathers on the wall. And in the middle is, of course, her father, which was Eddie Reed, who in the show just passed away. And there's a theme of the show of continuing the legacy of your parents. And what comes into conflict here is Emma's version of her father's legacy, which is this picnic, which is very restrictive and very exclusive, and it butts up against Dylan's experience of living his legacy of his mother and his father, because they both serve food. They're both cooks, and his father has a food truck and wants to serve this food. So they're both trying to honor the legacy of their parents. And they come into conflict, and that is the main conflict of the show.
Great. Did we want to talk about that first clip before we show the second clip, or do we want to show the second clip?
Let's talk about that first clip. Lynn and Crystal, do you have, or Steve, or Kim, or anybody, jump in on some of the themes that are explored here, and I'll let you go with that.
Yeah, we can just tag team. Rob, I think you set that up really well. That in the middle of this number, we introduce what becomes the main conflict of the piece. So we see the whole town is gathering for the beginning of picnic week. So our show takes place over 1 week time, the 1 week leading up to the settlers' picnic. And in the middle of this number, we're introduced to Dylan, our other protagonist, who is on his way to the town clerk's office to register to sell food at the picnic. And so he goes up to the window and meets Mrs. Keller, who is the town registrar, and he says, I'm here to register for the picnic. I said, what's your name? Bow. Dylan Bow, my father, Minching Bow, has a food truck on the we moved here a few months ago, and Mrs. Keller says there are no bows, and Dylan doesn't understand what she's talking about. I said there are no bow, there's no Bow founding family. This is not, basically saying this is not a thing, and you're not allowed to register because you have to be a descendant of one of the 5 founding families to sell your food at the picnic. And so this is the beginning of our conflict.
We also really wanted to focus on, there are versions of the show where protests erupted much quicker, and Emma herself was actually trying to be a protester and misstepping in different ways, and finding her way. What we wanted to explore was something that really uses capitalism as well, and geography. So Main Street is very important here. My in-laws are from Ohio, and so the model of the town, any town with the last name of Falls, most likely. So Sugar and Falls is a place where I would turn. There were often conservative posters around, but it also had a certain look. And in fact, Starbucks, they pushed out Starbucks or any corporation. You have to have a permit. It has to look a certain way. So Susie Reed, who runs the town, very much uses that to her advantage and curates. And as the show goes on, we keep exposing that underneath. Why musical theater? I think that's a great question to ask. I mean, I write plays, I write audio drama, I write TV. Lynn works in other mediums too. We're using the genre of musical theater to the music is pretty here. It's beautiful and Come On Down. But there is a lie underneath this song, and that becomes more exposed as the musical goes on. Musicals can do this because music draws you in. Music allows you access, as Lynn masterfully does with her lyrics, access to interior thought. So because we can use all of those things, we can really get to, this is the facade, this is what's happening inside, this is someone's damaged perception inside of what's going on that is not true, and they are not far on their journey, or perhaps are doing harm. So those are all aspects we wanted to, with different members of the town, of different identities, explore as this, now that we can start to really debate this rule, what comes up. It's also intergenerational. So here you're seeing, students of a certain age, but there is definitely a range of age in the town.
I think this also might be a good time to just talk about like where the idea for this show came from, and why we decided to write, start writing this piece many moons ago. Quite a few years ago now, I had my husband and I were having a conversation with a family member, and we had just been Joe and I had just been on a trip, and we'd been in Europe and visiting places. I mean, we love to travel whenever we can, and we love to just visit different places, different cultures, and experience that, especially in food, because we love food and we love to eat. And so we were talking about, we'd been on a trip, and we were in Amsterdam and Paris and London, and Joe was saying to the family member, you've got to see Paris. You guys have to go. It's just amazing. And the family member said, I'm not really interested. I have everything I need right here in the US. And that just struck me to the core. It made me feel sad, but I think what it really made me feel most of all was anger. I felt anger. I was very angry, and it made me angry because I feel that the heart of so many problems in this country are people who are not interested in having an experience outside of their insular life, and I think I think it's a huge problem. And so I took my anger and I wrote a song that's called Postcard American Town, that I put on an album that I put out a few years ago. This song is not in the show. The only thing that exists is the title. But that was when I met Crystal quite a few years ago, we were talking about something to write together, and I had shared my album with her, and that song really struck her, and we just started a conversation about I wonder if there's a show here somewhere, talking about these things. So, our point of entry to this piece is looking at white fragility. And, I think that is, something that we can both speak to, and, and looking at different perspectives. We have I think, living in the New York City area, we have one perspective. Some, not all, but some of my family in Kansas has a different experience. Some of our family members, in other places in the Midwest have a different experience. And so, that's kind of how we started on this journey.
And there's a specific lyric in it that we really tried to build the show around, which is, I have everything I need within 3 miles of here. What does that mean? You've got your main street, you've got your business, you've got maybe a place where you meet people, maybe you have a park. 3 miles. We're talking about, the town before Challenge, the people that run it, the Reeds. 3 miles. That's it. That's the perspective, and that's power grows from that. Abusing privilege comes from that, and those are all things. And they also, it also does have scenes where, there's cultural appropriation from, oh, look, I got to, the Perez's now have a store on Main Street. That's so interesting. And, trying to say hello and, misusing language and but trying, so hard and offending. So, when we talk about opening up white fragility, we wanted to do it not in a satire or a parody, which there is a lot of, I see, but really asking the hard questions. And we couldn't have done it without consulting with Kim. We couldn't have done it without listening to the students. Many things changed as we went, many, many, many things. And we looked to also the department and the students and listening to make sure that, as safe spaces as possible were created for those kinds of conversations.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think, that's the thing with the show is that, we're showing a whole town, and there are many different perspectives, and, it would be impossible for us to have a lived experience for an entire town, that we find actually is, through the show, we find it actually is multicultural, but it's that is, stuffed down in different ways. So, agreeing with everything that Crystal said, it's been, so important for us to, we've had so many amazing conversations with the students here that we're working with over 2 years. And we've, done some serious overhauls of the piece that have been just, I mean, we love ripping things apart. So, rewrites we love rewriting. Rewriting is super exciting, and we've done it, over and over and over again in this piece, and we'll continue to. But the students were such an amazing influence, on what the piece is, the pieces that you're going to see this week.
So I want to, there's so many things that you mentioned that I want to expand upon, but I do want to get your insight on something, and then I want to hear Kim's perspective. But, one of the things that I picked up as you were talking is, this is largely, a theme that comes up is this issue of white fragility, and you can't have a play or, a creation about white fragility without bringing in multiracial issues and having that, set up white fragility. So, in many ways, one comes with the other. So in that way, as again, 2 white women writing this play about, white fragility in a multiracial town, you're the right people to write this. But needing, to have all this support, and you mentioned this, the input from the students and input from Kim, and I definitely want to hear more about that. But Crystal, you brought up that many changes, and Lynn, you did too. So either one of you, if you could respond, you brought up that there were many changes that were made along the way based on feedback. And you also, I picked up on the fact that you said that you love rewriting. I'm also a writer myself, and I hate rewriting. So that's, I know it's a necessary evil and we have to do it, but yeah, where you love it, I completely hate it. But so you, I'd like to know about a specific, like one specific change that you made based on input. And then I see Rob wants to jump at it too. And then I also want to hear Kim about a change that you had helped make in the play, given your role as a creative consultant. Rob, go. So what's a change?
Perfect intro, Rob.
Yeah, actually, this is leading very well. I don't mean to step on any toes, but this leads very well to the second recorded excerpt. So,
okay,
because it's dealing directly with what we're talking about here. You know, just so for people who don't know the play. There are many different cultural identities represented in the play. There, of course, are the very white founding father, descendants of the founding fathers of the play. And as I said before, Dylan Bao, our second protagonist, is of mixed Chinese and Indian heritage. His father is Chinese, and there are two characters that are Latinx, Mr. and Mrs. Perez. And then there's Nostra Jacobs, who is African American, but was adopted by one of the white founding members of the play. There are a lot of different, and another kind of identity. There are two LGBTQ plus people from that community as well. There are a lot of different things represented. So. So it does beg the question, like, well, who could tell all of these stories? Who has the lived experience of every single one of these identities? And the answer is no one. So the question then becomes, well, how? Well, how do you do this? How do you tell these stories authentically, with respect? And the answer is conversation. And so one of the huge reasons why Kim was so important to this project was establishing these conversations, creating a safe space for these conversations, and so that the actors themselves were able to share their own personal experience and their own lived experience of what it is to be the cultural identity that they represent. And this next clip is a really great example of this. So let me set this up. This is far in the second act. This is when things are going dreadfully, dreadfully wrong. And there's a confrontation between the two protagonists, between Emma, who you'll see who's not singing, and Dylan, who is singing. And you'll see in the background a projection of Dylan's father's truck, which has been vandalized. And we don't know at this point in the show who has done it. But there is the racial tension has escalated to a point where, unfortunately, there's a bit of vandalism, his tires are slashed. There's a sign painted on the side of his truck. And this, unfortunately, is all too real. Right, it's the act of anti-Asian violence in this country has not abated and has only risen in the past 2 years, and so this is disturbing, but it's also real. And the show is tackling head on how do you deal with this? What is the reaction to this? So after a scene with Dylan and his father, Emma comes, and she's the last person that Dylan wants to see at this point. And because she just doesn't understand, she doesn't get it. And so this song called Little Needles is an explanation by Dylan about why this is so hurtful, And sometimes it's an act of clear violence, like a vandalizing of your father's truck, and sometimes it's little needles. Sometimes it's small things, it's the microaggressions that people have to sustain every day. And the reason I brought this up, not only because it touches this very sensitive subject, but it really shows a very clear what our process was like. And we're going to talk about the process in a bit. I'll let you hear the song first. And I'm actually going to put the lyrics in the chat because I think they're so important and they're so vital. And I want everyone to be able to read them as they go along. Okay, so this is an excerpt from Little Needles. The performer is our graduate MFA student Chris Shin, and then we're going to talk. Lynn and Crystal and even Stephen or Kim can all talk about the process in which this had, because I'll give you a clue. These were not the original lyrics to the show. And it was only with the conversation and the space that was created by this rehearsal process that the writers were able to listen and hear and understand what a specific point of view was. So here we go. I'm going to make sure the sound is on this time. Here we go. Again, this is Christian singing Little Needles.
When you walk down the street, do people look through you? When you go in a building, does everyone assume you're the delivery guy? Do things like that happen when you say hi? Strangers speak to me, they talk really slowly, assuming they are saying words that I can't distinguish. Cause with a face like mine, there's no way I could speak English. Every day it's another little needle. Every day there's another little hole. Every day another dose of dismissal. And every little needle steals a part of my soul. So it's easier for you to say, let's back away, let's try again another day. But I won't bury my head in the sand, just so you can feel a little more at ease. I'm caught up in a riptide while you're safe on land. Why did I think you could ever understand?
Great. That's the clip that we have here. And I have a little quote here from a PSFA article from Chris, actually. And this is what Chris said about the experience of performing in Postcard American Town. He says, quote, "For so much of my life, I've very rarely seen myself on a theatrical stage. I mean that from the standpoint of what I physically look like and my personal life experience. This show is both of those things for me. As a first-generation Asian American, I've grappled all my life with what it means to be American." And I'm going to toss it on to either Lynn or Kim or Crystal.
I'd actually like to hear, if you don't mind, I'd like to hear Kim's perspective on this. So Kim, can you say more about and maybe if you specifically worked on this piece that Rob showed, but if you could talk more about, the change process. How, and then I want to come back to Lynn and Crystal, because I think that this is really important, this issue of, how you took input, feedback, and change to, make it the play. And I think this is part of being a writer and a creative. It's like we take so much feedback and criticism to get things right? To get the cultural authenticity right, but also to get the story right. Because we also want to make sure that character and plot development are there. So Kim, can you just tell us about your role in helping with the changes?
Sure. So I joined the process spring of last year, so about a year ago, and by then the program had been developing the piece. I think you all started fall of 2020, I believe. And so the piece was already certainly not what it is today, but it had a beginning, middle, and end. So it was a fully formed piece already. And so when I came in, I attended some rehearsals, I attended a read through, and then really the process was, for me personally, and everyone does this differently, I pay attention to how I feel. As an audience member. I am not actually a trained literary dramaturg. I'm not a playwright. I feel like my role was to experience the story as someone who is, participating in this world that they are writing about. And so I had to start from that place, because to me, that is the job of the story, is to tell a story, to people and to enlighten folks. And so I took mental notes about what I was feeling, because feelings are a tricky thing, right? And I trust my body really a lot. I trust my heart, I trust my gut. And sometimes it's very difficult to sort of put to words exactly what those feelings are. So what I did was I noted what triggered those emotions, what triggered reactions. And then, got on my phone, wrote them down. Because to me, it's emotional work, right? It's emotional labor. Let's be real. As a person of color, as a woman, that is work that we have been sort of doing all our lives, is is not having really a choice, but pay attention to our feelings, and also to know how to guard them and know how to calibrate them in order to adapt to a situation. And in this case, I felt like I allowed myself to be open and feel all the things I wanted to feel. And then I shared all of that feedback via notes, via emails, via conversations with the 4 other people on this webinar. And then we had conversations. And then I opened up, conversations with students where it was just me and students, where it was very clear. I tried to make it clear to them, and I think it was clear, this is a safe space. If there are things right now that you don't want me to share, but just know that the purpose of the safe space is to enhance the storytelling that Lynn and Crystal want to do. This is to help them tell the story that they want to tell, but ultimately also to incorporate the perspectives that they don't have, that you provide as young people, as students, as people of color, as queer people, all of those things.
Sure.
And yeah, sorry.
So let's say it's like, one of the things that you're alluding to as well, and I know that Lynn and Crystal brought up before the show, was that, I think this is a really momentous, dare I say, or important part of the process, because as I understand, like, this is the first time this play has been on stage, right? And you're still, and Lynn and Crystal were talking about how, like, even after it's going to show here at San Diego State, they're still going to make changes. And so I think that's really cool. That's so cool that San Diego State gets to be a part of that process, that we are actually, in a way, piloting it, right? So, and, to see it eventually, like, it'll just evolve and change for the better, et cetera. And then I'm going to go back to Lynn and Crystal to talk about, so what were the specific changes that were made? Because Rob mentioned that this wasn't the original song. So can you speak to that? Like, so what were the changes that were made and why?
Absolutely. The changes came in this opening verse, the first section that you heard. The lyrics that were there before didn't feel specific to Chris in his lived experience. It was part of the lyric was when you go, the old lyric, when you go to the checkout, does the clerk wonder if you have the money to pay? Do things like that happen in your day? And when I was talking to Chris about the song, and it was really important to me that the song felt real to his experience. And we had a long conversation, well, multiple conversations about his lived experience, which the thing that hit home with me the most through my conversation with Chris was the point of erasure, of people of people seeming to look through him. And that's actually the first, I'm pulling this up because sometimes I don't even remember. I'm like, which version are we in? Let me make sure I say this exactly right. The beginning of this verse now, based on that you didn't, this is right before what you heard. based on the conversations that I have with Chris, it begins when you walk down the street. Do people look through you? When you go in a building, does everyone assume you're the delivery guy? Do things like that happen when you say hi? And that was very much based on, direct conversations with Chris about, assumptions that are made and assumptions that have been made, when sadly, when people just look at him and he talked about that, people talking loudly and slowly because they think that he must not speak English, which is just, it's crazy that this is the world that we live in still, that we still live in this world. But so that was the point of the changes. The heart of the chorus of the song has been the same since I wrote it. Every day it's another little needle, every day another little hole. And I wanted the story of the verse of what, the microaggressions were to really feel specific to the actor. And, and which means that, it's possible in another iteration of the song later that these lyrics may be rewritten again, because I feel very strongly that it has to be something that hits to the core of, of the person delivering the song for, and I feel like these changes, Chris was very happy with these changes, and I feel like his performance of this song is, to me is just, it's really shattering. He really, it's he nailed it. Yeah, he nails it.
It's so amazing. What an amazing, that's such a great story. Thank you so much for telling that. But I feel like it's an amazing story for Chris too, that he gets to be a part of, the evolution of this musical. And I think that, the changes that you made because of your conversation with the students, et cetera, really speaks to the PETA experience. Because one of the things that, to me, reading the lyrics, hearing the lyrics, and you are talking about it, we're talking about the perpetual foreigner stereotype, which has plagued our PETA communities, since we got here in the 1800s. So, in these issues of dismissal and erasure, and in fact, I noticed that on the lyrics, written lyrics, every day it's another needle, but the line is every day another dose of suspicion. But what Chris sang was a dose of dismissal.
It changed from, it changed, it changes from, yes.
And that to me was like, and that word choice, that small word choice makes a difference, because I think that's, what that is, the issues that we fight with as a community: marginalization, invisibilization, and foreign perpetual foreigner, et cetera. And I know, like, with your work with Allegiance, which, oh my God, like I could talk about that forever. But, to me, the suspicion makes more sense with that experience. Right. But with this experience, like, dismissal fits better. And I just thought that was great. Stephen, let's get your voice in here. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, this whole process of bringing in feedback from all of the students has really shaped how this piece is being presented now and how it will change in the future. Even late last week, with two of our gay characters in the show, I identify as a gay man, and so that this storyline for me has been something that I've been tracking throughout the process, and so it's one of the relationships that's been rewritten and is still being explored. And I know that Crystal and Lynn would probably agree with me that process is not quite finished with this version of the show, and we're at a point where the show has to be performed and it has to have an audience and here. But even late last week, I think it was Wednesday night, when we lost power on campus and we were rehearsing outside and we were trying to put everything together, finding the truth in two closeted gay men in the Midwest one being a police officer, one being a choir director at a church, and establishing and tracking their relationship throughout and finding the truth in that. One of our students, Clinton Sherwood, came up and shared his experiences and also shared his thoughts about the character to Lynn and Crystal. And we sat in on that conversation that he was like, I just need 5 minutes. And, 35 minutes later, we were still talking about, which was wonderful. We were talking about how this could shift and how it could really be rooted in the truth of what these complex characters are going through. And then the conversation continued with Kyle Montgomery, who's playing Andy in this. These are characters of Andy and Will. And after he saw the rewrites, he had his thoughts about it as well, which led to more rewrites. And it's actually a scene that we're still finishing staging, which we're going to do tonight before we get to the run through of the show. So that's that process and the space that's been created and how the room has been safe, for students and for all the creatives to have these conversations has led to this. And it wasn't easy. I mean, it wasn't, at the beginning of a process like this, there's a lot of getting to know you, right? You've got, students, graduate students and undergraduate students who the graduate students were just getting to know each other. They were coming to a 2-year program, and this was one of the first things we worked on. So they were just getting to know each other. We had undergraduate students who some knew each other, some didn't, and they didn't really know the graduate students that well at all. We have 2 writers who don't know hardly any of us. We've just started to meet and we've had conversations, but at the beginning of the process, it really was getting to know you, and we're dealing with such charged material that is so important, especially right now. It is so relevant. And what I think I've loved about this process the most is that the writers and Kim and everyone on the creative team has been responding to what's happening in the world right now. And everything that happens in the world is affecting what's going on, because I know Lynn and Crystal have said from the beginning that this is America now. This is this small town right now, 2022. It's not 4 years ago. It's not 2016. It's not 2018, and so everything that happens has affected it. And so as we got to know each other and as we went through some growing pains, and Kim was brought into the process, everything just opened up and the conversations led to this wonderful, wonderful work that continues to evolve. And I know that will continue beyond San Diego State. And so, yeah, for me, I feel sometimes as a director, as a facilitator, yes, I put people in pretty pictures and I make sure that they look good on stage, but I really, a lot of times am facilitating, what's happening, especially in a new work, to make sure that all the voices are heard and that everybody is understanding what's going on, but also is comfortable and feels like it's going in the right direction. I know Kim wanted to jump in on that a little bit.
Yeah, I just wanted to add also in terms of this conversation about how those discussions fostered, changes in the script. One thing I pay attention to is a word I love, which is nuance. I actually named my own company after it because I just love the word so much, because it really speaks to how complex human beings are, and how we cannot assume that we truly know what a person's experience is. But one of the things that did come up, an issue that came up that I felt needed to be addressed, because this is something I observe actually quite a bit with works that are primarily written by white artists, white authors, is that there's a tendency to sort of wash out the BIPOC characters in a really positive light, in a way that sort of makes them a one note, they're the hero, or they're the, it's that the magical BIPOC person, right? The one who kind of changes it all. And I wanted to pay attention to that, because I think that complexity is actually power. Complexity in narrative and storytelling is agency. And so one of the things that came up was a question about one of the BIPOC characters in the show having a moment that was not a nice moment, it was not a moment that spoke highly of that person. And there was a little bit of fear, I think, of like, is that okay to do that? And so, you know, I feel very strongly that people are complex. And I will say outright, you know, BIPOC folks can also do harm, you know, and do harm to other BIPOC folks. And I think that this is a complex issue, and we can't afford to be sort of Pollyanna about it. I know that's a terrible thing. I'm trying to come up with the right thing, but to sort of mute the realities of what it is to be a human being. And so, yes, I think that you know, while there is sometimes, and I understand it, the impulse to make BIPOC characters more heroic, sweeter, nicer, you know, I'm more interested in complexity. I'm more interested in what drives this person, what motivates this person, and what, you know, what are the stories that they grew up in, you know, and because none of us are exempt from this work of trying to be better human beings. And so, so that is something that I feel like came up during, you know, the talk about changes.
Sure. And just to, you know, piggyback off what you said too, I think, you know, we're speaking to issues of toxic positivity. We're speaking to issues of, you know, the heroes and holidays, which has plagued K-12 curriculum forever. You know, so yeah, I think it is important to talk about the complexities, the nuances, the good, the bad, the ugly, right, of all characters. Another issue that came up that I'd like us to talk about too is, and Stephen, you brought this up, but you know, it's this notion of, you know, right now we're in this period of reckoning for social justice, right? And we have racial justice issues at the forefront. We have anti-Asian hate at the forefront. And so I want to talk about that for a minute. So my question is, you know, so how were you inspired by the escalating anti-Asian hate in writing this, and how does this play, you know, respond to that? And you know, also how do we, you know, and I liked how, okay, so I know I'm packing in a lot to this question, so take the parts that you want, but I also want to address the issue, and I know that Crystal, you brought this up earlier, but you know, you're also using music, a musical, which tends to be light and whimsical, right? And humor are devices that are being used. So I'm trying to get into craft issues as well, to tell very serious topics. You know, like we're talking about white fragility, which people still don't understand, right? We're talking about these complex topics, and you know, you're using devices like musicals and humor, and then I think about allegiance, the same thing, this very serious topic, but yet it conveys the powerful message more so than, let's say, like making it a serious dramatic piece, right? So can you talk about that, your choice in your response to anti-Asian hate, how that played a role in this, and also your choice of craft?
Oh my goodness.
So I know it's a lot.
So many things. So many things, Virginia. Let's see. I mean, you know, we started writing this show, I guess in earnest in late 20, yeah, later, I think it was like fall of 2017, you know, so it was right after Trump was elected. And, you know, I guess not, weirdly is not the right word. I guess none of this should be shocking to us, like all of the things that it's still kind of shocking, but I guess it shouldn't be shocking because look at the world that we live in. But, you know, the incident with the truck, we actually, you know, that was in a draft, I think in 2018. So, you know, the act of anti-Asian violence was there even, you know, before the wave of anti-Asian violence that that happened in 2020, or that was brought to the forefront of of our national discussion in 2020 was already there, and we were I think we were both kind of shocked by how much by how relevant, by how the show was becoming weirdly more relevant, because I think when we started writing it, we were wondering, like, I wonder if, if this whole thing is just going to become irrelevant pretty soon, will it?
Well, we were writing a little bit, and this happens a lot in my work, I think in yours too. You're trying to predict, you're not trying to predict, but you're seeing where it's going. And I think one of the interesting things about this musical is it holds everyone accountable for. We know where we're going. We see where this is going. And so one of the most frustrating things about, one of the most terrible things about the recent anti-Asian hate that has exploded is hearing, this is what happens when you don't have representation. This is what happens when, you don't raise up voices. This is what happens when you give into the dominant culture. This is what happens when you don't correct your 70-year-old father, even if he's in a nursing home. This is what happened. So the play tries to, and it will continue to try to perfect that there are tiny microaggressions from the minute from the minute Emma starts singing, from the minute we see every character, there are so many things embedded. So the moment of the truck is not something that randomly happened or out of nowhere. You can start to backtrack as an audience member every single pebble that led there, because it's the pebbles, in the water that cause these ripples. So I think that was something that was just
little needles.
Little needles. It's a series of little needles, and sometimes,
and that's the point I think we want to make to an audience, because the best thing about theater is you do capture an audience. They do have the power to leave, but we have an ability to say something.
And sometimes, obviously, we address it as we do, in the moment of the truck, which is incredibly serious. But we both also enjoy addressing things through humor, and there's a point early in the show in the first scene where Dylan and Emma meet, and Dylan brings up this issue of the picnic, and accuses Emma and the event of exclusion. And part of the a moment that Crystal wrote, where they're talking about the settlers. He said it's for the settlers of the town, and Dylan says, well, there were people here before, and Emma says, yeah, but they're not here now. And it's a laugh line. I mean, it's not, it's terrible. It's terrible, but that's the way that, that's an in for us. Humor is an in for us. And you mentioned, Virginia, just talking about allegiance for a second. George Takei was, George was our North Star on that show, because it is his story, and something that was important to George that sometimes I think people had trouble, wrapping their mind around with the show, was that we did show points of joy, and and George talked about being in the camps, and that they had dances, they played baseball, they found a way to take this horrible situation and find their own joy within it. And so, there are moments of levity, and we do show moments in Allegiance, of characters enjoying each other and having fun, and that doesn't, I don't think that takes away from the drama of the piece. I think that it adds to the humanity of the piece. And I think that, that's important, that I don't think everything, going down a deep, dark hole, is, it's not the storytelling of that piece and of Allegiance, and it's not the storytelling of this piece. We definitely, in both cases, the pieces do go down a deep, dark hole when they need to, and that is, the point of all of it. But
Sure.
yeah.
Well, I mean, and at the PETA Center, we focus a lot on celebrating a PETA joy. And I think, what is the point of this fight if it's not to have joy? So and I think that you're working creatively using that joy to present these stories is extremely important too. So I know that we have about 20 minutes left, and I want to give the audience an opportunity. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat. I'm happy to take questions and facilitate that. In the meantime, I'm, chatty Cathy, so I'll keep talking. But I really would love to have audience participation. So please feel free to chat your questions in the box so that we can, address them. But while folks are doing that, I'd also like to ask, why San Diego State? So and maybe this is a Rob Steven question, but why is San Diego State the place to premiere this work?
I guess I can answer that. So, just so people don't know, the musical theater program here has a new musical initiative that was funded in part by one of our donors, Julia Brown, and the purpose of this initiative is to raise up the voices of voices that that aren't heard, really, and there's really not a development program like it. It's a 2-year process. We have listened to we had for the area there were 135 different musicals that were submitted from people all across the world, and for our next initiative we had 163 new musicals that were submitted to us. And part of the choice of choosing a new musical is that we want to make sure that we are tackling contemporary themes that mean they're going to be good for our students, and finding a show that matches up with the actors that we have. So we have an incredible cohort of 8 actors, and finding the show that each of those actors will have a chance to really dig into a very complex role is really important to our choice. So you ask why SDSU, and it's that, this musical theater program is one of only 2 graduate programs in musical theater in the world. And
wow.
yes, it's true. And fortunately, Stephen and I both have long professional careers, and we have contacts in the business in New York and throughout the world, really. So it was we just have known a lot of composers. Both Stephen and I have done a lot of readings of shows, and have helped process through, and we're actually using what we have here at SDSU, which, we have this amazing program, we have the facilities, we have this amazing MFA Design and Tech program to really support something that's just, it just doesn't exist out there, a development program that leads from 3 different workshops to a full production of a show. And so we're very happy to do it. And both Stephen and I are very committed to working on new musicals, because, the next generation of Broadway composers has to be supported. It just has to be supported. So we are in our own way trying our tiny part and participating.
What's the other program? So you said that San Diego State is one of 2. So what's the other program?
There's another MFA program in Minnesota, University of Minnesota, Mankato.
Wow, I did not know that. That's a fun fact about SDSU. Stephen, would you like to add to that?
No, I just will say, it is such a joy to be able to work with writers and support writers throughout a process. And I think, so often, as Rob had said, we've worked on so many, what the industry calls a 29-hour reading, where you have 29 hours through the Actors Equity Union to put up a reading of a show. And most of that time is just to learn the music and learn the intention of the dialogue and have it on music stands and just get it out there. It truly is a reading. And I think the continuity of a 2-year process where writers can have consistency and deadlines through 2 years to be able to do a reading, rewrite, do a second reading, rewrite, do a workshop, rewrite, do a full production, and continue rewriting through, and knowing that that continuity is there. It's one of, I mean, I'm not sure there's another program out there like this. Lynn and Crystal, you can chime in if you've heard of something similar to this, but to have something this similar that's not connected with a major regional theater or commercial producer, but definitely I think this is unique to the academic world.
Wow, great.
It totally is. I do not know of another program like this. And I mean, for us, this has been absolutely amazing to have this much development time, you know, prior to this production, and then to be able to have this amazing production, and with, oh my goodness, and to be able to partner with the design graduate students who are designing the show. We're blown away every day we walk in the theater. We're blown away by their work, you know.
I will say too, also, like the student experience, how this relates to the educational goals of our MFA graduate students, of our undergrads, and especially, you know, our design and technology grads as well. I mean, to be able to work on a new piece of musical theater, to sort of cut your teeth on that, and, you know, everything that we've talked about, the conversations that you have with writers, how to approach new material that's never been performed by anyone before. I mean, I think when most most of our students come to San Diego State, a lot of them have done works that have already been done before, and when they approach a role, they have source material to go to. They can see, you know, Christian Chenoweth, do Galinda, right? And they know what that material is. But when you're working on something that has nothing out there, and you're really creating a role from the ground up, that's an educational experience that is unmatched. So it's a win-win for the students, but also for the writers as well.
Wow, super. So what are some of your next projects, Lynn and Crystal?
Yes, I have a new audio fictional podcast series called The Magician's Magician, which I sold, and I'm developing the first season, which has been written. So that's probably going to go into production this year. So hopefully that'll be released in the next year with some awesome, I'm partnering with some great platforms on that. I'm also the author of King Kirby, which is on Broadway Podcast Network, which is a play about the life of Jack Kirby, who was the co-creator of the Marvel Universe. And it asks, why do you know Stan Lee, but not Jack Kirby's name? So you definitely know his artwork because from Captain America to Fantastic Four. Those are the things kind of brewing right now. That a lot of things in development and new play commissions that hopefully will come out in the next couple of years. I'm also the author of Mary and Max the musical with Bobby Cronin.
I'm writing 2 other pieces with my other writing partner, Sarah Cooper. We do a lot of feminist writing. We have one piece called Hot, that is a contemporary feminist adaptation of Helen of Troy. Get it? Hot.
Oh, wow.
Helen of Troy. And we're writing another piece called Perpetual Sunshine and the Ghost Girls, that is about the women who worked in the U.S. radium factory in the 1920s. Yes. So developing both of those pieces. And I do a lot of work as an orchestrator. So I'm headed from San Diego out to Chicago, where we're going to be doing a piece called Life After that actually was at the Old Globe a few years ago. We're doing it at the Goodman in Chicago, and I'm the orchestrator and music supervisor for that piece. So I'm doing that, and I'm really looking forward to this coming winter. I'm orchestrating Michael R. Jackson's next piece. Michael R. Jackson won the Pulitzer Prize for A Strange Loop, and his next piece is called White Girl in Danger, and it's amazing and hilarious and fantastic, and that's going to be premiering at the Vineyard Theater in New York, and I'm orchestrating that piece.
Wow. Kim, what about you? Do you have any upcoming projects?
Well, I have my job at the Globe. So yes, I have my hands full at the Globe, and about to launch into Grinch auditions. And for all the families of San Diego, that usually causes quite a ripple. all the young aspiring musical theater kids are like, yes. Yeah. There's that. I'm also collaborating with the director Victor Milana Maog, on a project I can't name because it hasn't been announced, but I'm very excited about that as a casting director. Yeah, just just plugging away.
Super. And then Rob and Stephen, what about you? What are some upcoming projects? Can you announce what the next musical is, or is that still top secret? I'm getting top secret looks.
Well, it's interesting you say that because we actually have a Zoom at noon today to let those writers know that they've been selected.
Oh, well, would you like to announce it here? Just kidding.
That wouldn't be fair, would it?
No.
But that's good. We know that we have something in the works, so that's very exciting. I know that Nellie, you had put your hand up, and I don't know if you still have a question or not, but if you do, please chat it, and I'm happy to share it. But in the meantime, we have about 9 minutes. Are there any last comments from our panel? Is there anything that folks would like to? Oh, most importantly, before we forget and get too far, Rob, tell us about the show, like the runtime, all that stuff, how folks can get tickets. Let's promote the show and see it.
Absolutely. We open on Friday, April 29th, which is this Friday. The show is at 7 o'clock, and there's a show on Friday night and Saturday night at 7 o'clock. There is a show with limited tickets available on Sunday, May 1st at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then there are 3 more performances next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evening at 7 p.m. And you can go to the TTF website, which I'll put a link in there for to have tickets. Student tickets are $17. Other tickets are $20. It's an incredible production. It asks a lot of questions, and it's a remarkable show, and it's been a remarkable journey. I can't thank Linda and Crystal and Kim enough for being amazing partners in this whole thing. Steve and I could not have done it without you guys. I mean, it's just been we're very, very grateful.
Agreed. And I just want to piggyback and say that Friday night, I just checked, is already sold out. So there are no tickets left for Friday, but we do have Saturday, limited tickets on Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
And what does limited tickets mean?
I think there's only about 20 or 30 tickets left for Sunday at this point.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like a special. Like
no. I'm just saying, if you want to come Sunday afternoon, get your tickets now because there's only a few left. I'm not sure if they've been released yet. Have they? Let me look. I'm on the site right now. No, it hasn't been. Hold on. Ooh. Yeah, it hasn't been released yet, but there will be tickets available on Sunday. Probably they'll go live later today.
Super. Well, Eric, are we making a date and going again? I don't know if he's still there.
Great. Okay, well, let's thank you, Virginia, and let's thank all of our panelists for such a stimulating session this morning. Again, this is a world premiere, and these performances of Postcard American Town will begin this Friday, and it will run through May 5th in the Mainstage Theater on the SDSU campus. Rob put in the link to the TTF website for tickets. Also, we will be emailing the survey to everyone who registered for this event, and we would be grateful for your response as it helps us to improve our programming. We also hope you attend other events sponsored by One SDSU and Arts Alive SDSU, which you can learn about at one.sdsu.edu and artsalive.sdsu.edu. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us this morning, and please enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.